All right, let's talk about the undisputed king, right? Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, this is probably the most terrifying, most iconic creature to ever walk the planet. But you know what? The monster you see in the movies, that's not the whole story, not even close. So let's dig in and find out what the science actually tells us.
Yeah, for over 100 years, T-Rex has just completely captured our imagination. It's the king, no question. But what do we really know? Like, for real, what does the fossil record actually tell us? It's time to kind of peel back all those layers of Hollywood legend and get to the real science behind this tyrant king. Okay, so to really understand the king, you gotta go back, way back to its roots. And honestly, you'd probably be surprised to hear that the whole Tyrannosaur dynasty, well, it had a pretty humble beginning. So come on, let's jump in our time machine and meet some of T-Rex's earliest and much smaller ancestors. No, I'm serious. The very first tyrannosaurs, they weren't these giant, terrifying predators at all. We're talking about creatures like Guanlong and Dilong. These guys were small, they were fast hunters, maybe not even bigger than a person. And they were literally living in the shadows of other much bigger giants, like the allosaurs. Can you believe it? They were the total underdogs. And this timeline, wow, it really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? You've got an early ancestor like Guanlong showing up about 160 million years ago. But it took almost 100 million years of evolution before the T-Rex we all know and love finally stepped onto the scene. So this was no overnight success story. This was a long, slow, patient climb to the top of the food chain. And just look at the payoff for that incredibly long journey. You go from a 150-pound ancestor to an 18,000-pound apex predator. That's more than 100 times bigger. This family didn't just climb to the top of the food chain, you guys. They basically built a whole new penthouse suite up there just for themselves. So the big question is, how? How did T-Rex get so dominant? Well, let's pop the hood and break down the biological hardware that made this thing one of the most terrifying predators ever. Let's start with this number, 12,000 pounds per square inch. That's what scientists agree the bite force of a T-Rex was. To give you an idea of what that feels like, imagine a whole pickup truck stomping down on one single spot. This wasn't just a strong bite, it was a completely new kind of weapon on the battlefield. And all that power? It had a very specific, totally game-changing purpose. T-Rex was a bone crusher. I mean, look at those teeth. They're thick, like bananas. They weren't designed for slicing meat. Nope, they were for pulverizing bone. This meant it could get to the super nutritious marrow deep inside, a food source other predators just couldn't touch. Talk about making sure no part of your meal goes to waste. You know, for a long time, there is this cool-sounding theory about a septic bite. The idea was that T-Rex had a mouth full of nasty bacteria, kind of like a Komodo dragon, and its bite would lead to a fatal infection. It's a neat idea, but modern science has pretty much thrown it out the window. The reality is just so much more direct and, frankly, more terrifying. T-Rex didn't need poison. It had pure, bone-shattering force. Okay, we have to talk about the arms. The tiny arms. They're the butt of every dinosaur joke, right? But the fossils, they tell a totally different story. Yeah, they were short, but these two-fingered arms were incredibly buff, with attachment points for huge muscles. We're talking about an arm that could probably bicep curl over 400 pounds. So far from useless, they might have been crucial for holding on to struggling prey right up close. So what did this thing actually look like? For decades, it was simple, a giant, scaly reptile. But then we found its ancestors, like Dilong, and they had feathers, and that changed everything. The debate right now is that maybe the big adults were mostly scaly, but the babies and juveniles, they might have rocked a coat of fluffy feathers to stay warm. The jury is still out, which is kind of exciting, right? All right, let's talk about the senses that were guiding this killing machine. When scientists looked at CT scans of T-Rex skulls, they found these massive olfactory bulbs. That's the part of the brain that handles smell. And when you compare it to us, or even a dog, it's not even close. Its sense of smell wasn't just good, it was off the charts amazing. It could probably smell prey or a dead carcass from miles and miles away. And if the sense of smell wasn't enough, its vision was just as incredible. T-Rex had eyes that faced forward, just like us, which gave it amazing binocular vision. That means it had fantastic depth perception, something that's absolutely critical if you're a hunter. Get this, though. Scientists estimate its eyesight was even sharper than a hawk's. Let that sink in. This was not an animal you could hide from. Okay, so we've built this incredible biological machine. We know how it worked, but what kind of world was it living in? Let's take our T-Rex and drop it right back into its natural habitat.
So welcome to what we call the Hell Creek Formation, around 66 million years ago. Imagine a place that's now parts of Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas. But back then, it was this humid, subtropical floodplain. Think swamps, rivers, a world just bursting with life. You've got huge herds of Triceratops and Edmontosaurus, and all of them are living under the shadow of one undisputed ruler, Tyrannosaurus rex.
This leads to one of the biggest debates of all time, right? Was T-Rex a majestic hunter or just a big, lumbering scavenger? Well, the evidence for it being a predator is pretty solid. You've got the forward-facing eyes, that bone-crushing bite, and the smoking gun, fossils of other dinosaurs with healed T-Rex bite marks. That means they were attacked and survived. But on the other hand, with that massive body and that incredible sense of smell, it would have been an amazing scavenger too.
So what's the real answer? Well, the truth is, it was both. I mean, think about almost any big predator alive today. Lions, bears, you name it. They're opportunists. T-Rex was absolutely capable of hunting down the biggest, toughest prey in its world. But you think it would turn down a free meal? No way. It wasn't just a predator, it was an apex survivor.
So we've looked at the animal, we've looked at its world, but how in the world do we know all this stuff? Well, the last piece of this puzzle is the human story, the story of discovery.
Pretty much everything we know about T-Rex is built on a few absolutely spectacular fossil finds. It all started back in 1902 with the legendary fossil hunter Barnum Brown. But our understanding just exploded in the 1990s when Sue was discovered, and then Stan a year later. These two skeletons were so unbelievably complete, they gave us a look into the life of T-Rex that we'd only dreamed of before.
90%. Just think about that. That's how much of the skeleton of Sue we have. For a paleontologist, that is the absolute dream. Skeletons that complete let scientists study everything from how they moved to how they grew and even injuries they got during their lives. It's like a crystal clear window into a world that's been gone for 66 million years. And you know, the T-Rex story is far from over. This animal ruled its world for 2 million years. We've only been studying it for about 120. Every single new fossil we find adds another piece to this incredible puzzle. So what we think we know right now, it could all change tomorrow. And that's the cool part. The only thing we know for sure is that the Tyrant King still has plenty of secrets left to share.